Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We're really excited that you are here to be a part of the virtual college exploration series for all Illinois students. I wanted to give you just a few things before you get started with your awesome panel today and presentation. Number one, this is a webinar format, so we cannot see or hear you. So please do not worry if you're stressing about, where's my camera or microphone button? It is not on at all. Also, because it's a webinar format, we are doing a Q&A feature. So please put your questions in the Q&A for the panel today for them to answer any questions that you have during the session. As well as I would like to encourage you to sign up for more sessions. If you like this one today, please explore more at iacac.org. Or you can check out the recording of this session or other sessions, which will be available at the same website. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our awesome panelists today. Thank you again for being here.
All right, hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about private and public colleges and different points and perspectives of each. My name is Erin Miller. I'm an admissions rep and the coordinator of out-of-state recruitment for Alma College.
I'm Lindsay Hansen. I'm an assistant director of admissions at Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And I'm Travis T. Kelly. I'm an assistant director of admission as well at Albion College in Albion, Michigan.
And Alma's in Alma, Michigan. So thanks for that, guys. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the differences between private institutions and public institutions. Essentially, the differences between the two is where their funding comes from. So public institutions get money from the state government and the federal government as well, whereas private institutions kind of fund themselves through donations from alumni, private parties, or through tuition. You'll notice some of these private colleges, some of them should seem familiar to you. So Aurora, the University of Chicago, Wheaton, and DePaul. You'll notice that all of these have a number of things in common, including small class sizes, and that really allows you to have a really personal experience. It's a lot more individualized, not just through the class sizes, but with faculty members, it's a lot closer of a relationship you'll have. And through that, you'll also there's a lot more hands-on learning and not necessarily as much lecture material. And so you're out in the world doing things and there's a lot of experiential learning opportunities through private colleges. There are some myths about private colleges. So a lot of people assume that based on the sticker price that private colleges are super expensive and that only rich people can attend. It's not true. Actually, the majority of students that attend private colleges are ones that fall in the lower middle class demographic. And that there's also a lot of challenging admissions requirements. This is also not necessarily the case. A lot of them fall into similar ranges as the public institutions. And the last one is that, this isn't, the same as the big public institution and that there's not a real college experience that you're having. We always like to compare it to, the movies where, there's all these parties and it's not the real experience because it's not the big institution and the big name. That is not necessarily the case.
So on the opposite end, obviously we want to talk about public colleges, right? So public colleges, public universities are typically going to be larger classrooms. You are going to have, many more people in your class experiencing the same thing. Bigger school atmosphere too, right? There's going to be probably a lot more. It's just going to be a bigger campus, probably. More than likely, it's going to have a lot of alumni as well. So a lot of being bigger colleges, you're going to have more people who graduated from there. So there's going to be a really great base for alumni. But like, right, the big school atmosphere too, you're going to have a lot of opportunities, you know, maybe more than a private school too, or maybe just the same amount. But because it's going to be bigger, there's going to be a lot more opportunities to outreach to other alumni as well. So like I said, kind of a lot of different ways, a lot of positives for being bigger and having kind of more students at a public institution. And these are three that I'm sure you're also familiar with: Northern Illinois University, Chicago State. All of those really great institutions are public schools in the state of Illinois. So we, of course, want to talk about public college myths as well. You know, I think some, like Erin kind of said, I think of public schools when it comes to, you know, in the movies and those, you know, no rules, party all the time at those bigger public institutions. And that's not true, right? We know that we're going to college, any university we choose, we're going to college for an education, right? To graduate with a diploma, to then hopefully get a job afterwards. So that is definitely a big, I think, public college myth. Same with like easy admissions requirements, right? That anybody can get into any kind of public college anytime. And that is also not the case. I'm sure we can think of a few public colleges and public schools that are pretty hard to get into and pretty tough for their admissions requirements, or maybe they require a lot more things like an interview plus an essay plus a competition for money or any kind of scholarship. So public colleges are definitely going to be tough to also get into. This college again, right? Or not. Another myth, right, is not challenging courses because they're so much bigger class sizes. You're not going to have that same kind of rigor that sometimes I think we associate with private institutions, and that's also not true, right? The same kind of goes with that easy admissions requirements myth too, right? Any of those big schools that are really maybe prestigious and get hard to get into are going to have challenging courses. That's the whole point, right? To challenge you in that school environment. That's the same at private institutions, public institutions, doesn't matter at all. And I think now Travis is going to talk to us a little bit about the financial side, right? Because we already talked about the funding being different. And of course, that means scholarships are also going to be different between public and private.
Yeah, so I've been given the fun task to tell you a little bit about the financials at the differences between private and public schools. So I think just starting off, you know, no matter where you're at, if you're an incoming or prospective college student right now, probably you and your parents are thinking a lot about cost of college and trying to figure out what you might be able to afford or how much money you might need. And those are definitely important conversations to be having, but it can be really tough to really understand the financial aid process. I'm going to try to kind of help you know, maybe alleviate a little bit of worry and kind of give you in some hopefully simple terms how colleges are kind of coming up with their bottom line cost for you. So first of all, Lindsay, Erin, and I all work at private colleges. We all work at colleges where the sticker prices, like I say sticker price, meaning if you were to look online and look at what's the tuition and the room and board costs at the school before any scholarships or financial aid, that's what I'm calling the sticker price. So that's like your full cost if you were not to get any help. Private colleges tend to have those sticker prices that are quite a bit higher than the public schools. So that can really be something that scares people a little bit, which makes a lot of sense. If you're looking at a school that looks like it's twice the cost of all of the other schools you're looking at, it can look like a school you might want to take off your list. But I'm going to try to give you some simple steps and some reasons why that's not necessarily the case. So basically, what's going to happen is you're going to apply to college, apply to the schools that you're interested in, private or public. And then a lot of those schools are going to give you merit-based scholarships, especially a lot of the private schools with the really high sticker prices. Some public schools will do this as well, but tends to be pretty common in the private schools. So a merit scholarship that's based on, it might be based on GPA, it might be based on test scores, it might be based on just a number of academic factors. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at all that when you apply, and then they're going to say, okay, this student falls into this range. We're going to give them, you know, whatever the college names their different scholarships. We're going to give them this scholarship for X amount of money per year. And then you're going to have that as part of your financial aid package throughout your 4 years, most likely. So that's kind of starting off. And then other schools, or some schools, have activity-based scholarships. So that would be maybe if you get some sort of a fine arts or music scholarship. Some schools will give out athletic scholarships, just anything, you know, that sort that's not income-based, but it's also not merit-based, would be an activity scholarship. So those are two ways to get some scholarships right off the bat at a lot of schools, to kind of lower that cost. And I'll talk a little bit about it, but merit scholarships at a large school are going to be pretty large scholarships and bring the cost down pretty far. So that's already going to be a big reason to not be so worried about that cost. At the institution that I work at, the lowest one of those that we have is $23,000 per year. So there's some pretty large scholarships being passed out just for the merit-based. But then what you're going to do is you're going to fill out the FAFSA. If you haven't heard of the FAFSA, it's the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That's a government-based program that's going to try to help you get some additional aid at your schools. That's going to be kind of government-funded aid. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to sit down, you and your family, sit down, fill that out. It's going to ask you lots of questions about how much money your family makes, how much money you make if you had a job. You all fill that out together. You click on different schools that you want that to send to. So if you wanted to send it to our 3 schools, you'd send it to Alma, you'd send it to Aquinas, you'd send it to Albion, any other schools that you're looking at. Then our financial aid offices at our institutions would get that. And what they're looking at is there's a number there on your FAFSA. It's gone through a formula and it's given us a number called your EFC. That's called expected family contribution. That's basically saying, based on everything that you filled out in your FAFSA and your family filled out in your FAFSA, it's gone through this formula, and now this is how much money, this EFC number, this is how much money your family has available to pay for school for this next year. So you'll fill this out every year, but this is going to tell the schools, okay, this is how much money you have available for this next year to pay for college. So what all the institutions are going to do, whether they're public schools or private schools, is they're going to say, okay, this student only has this amount of money available. Let's do what we can to bring down the cost in order to make it affordable for them. So you might qualify for grants. That's going to be through the FAFSA. In Michigan here, we have something called the Michigan Tuition Grant that some students qualify for. You may have heard of the Pell Grant that students qualify for. There are some others that you might qualify for just based on your income level. But then even if you don't qualify for those, or even after you qualify for those, if there's still a pretty big gap in how much money you need to get down to that affordable level, the college will look at that and say, okay, this student needs $10,000 more to get down to an affordable level or down to that EFC level. So the college can give you institutional scholarships or grants as well to bring down that cost. So I know that's a lot of different things that I'm mentioning kind of in a row that can bring down the cost a little bit. But the big thing to know is that colleges are looking at that EFC and getting the cost down to that level. That's not to say that if you have no money available, that the colleges are going to ask you to pay no money. That's not saying that we're going to get you down to exactly what that EFC amount is. That's not your bottom line cost at every school just because that's your number. You are definitely going to have to pay some sort of money to go to college. We talk a lot in admission offices and financial aid offices about college being an investment for you. So you need to probably be thinking about getting ready to pay for college and stuff. You wouldn't buy a house, you wouldn't buy a car without expecting to have payments probably on those things, or at least to pay a decent amount of money that you've saved up for those things. So an education is no different, but we're also not going to try to make you pay an extreme amount that's way above what you have available. So kind of trying to meet you where you're at and make those the payments just kind of like the car and the house payments, try to make them at a level that you can afford throughout your time. So if we want to skip to the next slide here, I thought kind of show you a little bit of a graph of what I'm talking about, so you can kind of see. This here is a family that I've just pretended that they filled out the FAFSA and that they came up with a $10,000 EFC. So this is, again, they filled out their FAFSA, it went through the formula, and it told all the schools, no matter whether they were public schools or private schools, it told them, okay, you have $10,000 available to pay for school this next year. So then what the schools did, you've got your private school, I just made up a number, $50,000 per year. That's, you know, a lot of private schools these days are that much or more. Their sticker prices are. Public schools, I can't even see what I put there. $22,000. $22,000 is there. So that's just, again, just a guess. That's kind of a lot of them between the $20,000 to $30,000 mark. So again, the private school is like looking like it's more than double the cost. So that can kind of scare people away a little bit. But you can see what we've done here at a private school. They have given a pretty big amount of scholarships. So they might give them, you know, something like $25,000 in scholarships or something like that to bring down the cost quite a bit. They've given some grants that they might have qualified for through the government, or again, those institutional grants if there was some room available to bring the cost down a little bit more. And then you can see the federal student loan listed on both sides there. When you fill out the FAFSA, pretty much everybody that fills out the FAFSA as an incoming first year freshman student is going to be offered $5,500 worth of student loans. Those are, it's up to you if you want to take those loans. You certainly don't have to, but if you don't take them, then your cost is going to go up by $5,500. They're not going to bring your cost down that much just because you say, I'm not going to accept any loans. They're going to assume that you're able to pay that. So they will increase your costs by that much. So just again, notice that that's there on both sides, public and private. So that's going to be offered no matter where you're looking to go to school. That's going to be kind of built into this whole subtraction problem that you're seeing here. So, so that family got down to around this $10,000 mark to pay out of pocket. The public school, you can see they did a very similar thing. So scholarship is obviously listed a little bit smaller there. They may have got a merit scholarship, they maybe didn't. Maybe they got an activity-based scholarship, something like that. You know, just depending on who the student is, but that might bring the cost down a tiny bit. Grants, they might have qualified for the same sort of grants through the FAFSA, or maybe some sort of different institutional grant from that school. And then again, you've got the federal student loan that's offered to bring it down $5,500. And again, you can kind of see that their cost is around that $10,000 mark, which is exactly the same as the private school's final cost, even though they were twice the cost or more than twice the cost at the beginning. So if you don't understand anything that I'm saying or don't remember anything that I say after this, the really big important thing is that it doesn't necessarily matter so much what the starting cost is at these schools, because they're going to look at this EFC, they're going to look at how much you have available, and they're going to bring your cost down towards that affordable level for you, no matter what the starting cost is. I tell families that I meet with, our starting sticker price could be $200,000, and we would still end up at the same number at the end of the day, because we would just give you bigger scholarships and grants to get you down towards this EFC number. So really, I think it's important if you're looking at colleges right now to be thinking about money, be thinking about how you're going to pay for college, be thinking about how much you might be able to afford and things like that, but don't go looking at websites and looking at how expensive schools are and then knocking them off the list at this point in the process. Look at how much they are, ask questions to people like the three of us. We can answer questions about financial aid, but don't knock any of us off your list just because of cost until you filled out that FAFSA. That opened on October 1st, so it's been open for a couple weeks now. You can fill out that FAFSA. That's if you're a senior in high school right now. Fill out that FAFSA. And then a little bit later, maybe November, December, depending on the school, you'll get a financial aid award letter, and it will have like your bottom line cost written there. So then you can set those on the table, kind of compare the prices of those schools. And then if some of them are not affordable or they're too high for you, then start making decisions on knocking schools off your list based on the price. But don't do that at this point, kind of trust this process, go through all that, and then, again, things will be a little bit more clear, and probably a lot of families are pleasantly surprised at the bottom line cost, especially they're pleasantly surprised at some of these private schools because it starts off so high. I can say, working at a private school, that I work with students who are looking at public schools and private schools. There's some pretty well-known public schools in Michigan, and I have students looking at those schools and my school, and a lot of times the cost at my school ends up being less than the cost at those schools, just because of the way that we're creating these financial aid packages. So hopefully that helps alleviate some worries. Again, if you have questions about those sorts of things, reach out to your admission counselors or their financial aid offices at the schools that you're looking at, and they should be able to explain basically the exact same thing that I did, because again, public schools and private schools are always using the same process to get that down. This is not unique to any of our 3 schools. This is just kind of how the system works in general.
Definitely. And I think kind of going with costs a little bit, sometimes going out of state is a really big worry for students, especially you students in Illinois, right? We're 3 Michigan schools. So it would be if you looked at any one of us or any other kind of out of state schools, that there's something to think about when it comes to going out of state. So, why go to out of state? Why look at out of state schools? And this, typically private institutions do not have a different in-state, out-of-state tuition price. It's going to be the same for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're out of state or in-state, you're all looking at the same sticker price, like Travis said, because it's sticker price. You're all going to look at the same sticker price. So I think that's something to really keep in mind, especially when looking at public versus private as well. Private institutions out of state typically are not going to have that different out-of-state tuition price. Public schools could potentially have that out-of-state tuition cost. So that is something, again, to just take into consideration, think about. Yes, you may see a public school and what their sticker price is, but you're reading their in-state sticker price and not their out-of-state sticker price. So that's something to really keep track of. But a big thing to think about too is there could be some public institutions that have incentives to stay in that state. So for example, Michigan State University, they actually, if you are coming from out of state, you are gonna pay that out of state tuition price, but after you graduate, if you get a job in the state of Michigan, and I think work in the state of Michigan, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron or Travis, but I think it's about 2 to 3 years. If you stay in the state of Michigan and work, they will reimburse you that difference between out of state and in-state tuition. So they'll actually give you back some of your money because you stayed in Michigan and worked in Michigan. So there are public institutions that have incentives like that. So ask those kinds of questions too. Is there any way I could maybe look at in-state tuition costs? How could I do that? And they'll be able to tell you some of those details. But some schools also have out-of-state scholarships. I think, specifically, schools are thinking, out-of-state schools for their out-of-state students are thinking, oh, it's going to cost a little bit more for out-of-state students to travel back and forth for breaks or anything like that. So they want to help them out a little bit more and give them a little bit extra in terms of scholarship money, just because you live out of state. It's simple as that. Just because you don't have, at least, for example, in Michigan, just because you don't have a Michigan address means that you're going to get more money. So that's definitely something to ask as well at different institutions. Same with any kind of travel reimbursement programs. All 3 of us do have a travel reimbursement program, so it's something to think about. Basically, at least at Aquinas, what we do is we'll reimburse up to $400 of a student's transportation costs if they live out of Michigan or if they live in the Upper Peninsula, because sometimes students in the UP are traveling a little bit farther than our out-of-state students. So it just is a really great tool to ask other schools, can I be reimbursed to come and visit your campus? Those kinds of things are really going to be important to ask, because those are great incentives to look out of state if a school maybe has some of these resources for you. And Travis said it the best. This is an investment in your future, just like a car, just like a house. It is an investment for you and your future. So we realize this is a very big decision, a very important decision to make. It is a decision very similar to buying a car or buying a house, right? It is a very, very similar kind of investment that we're making. So at the end of the day, I think all three of us can agree that at the end of the day, it's finding what's going to be the best fit for you. Is that in-state? Is that out-of-state? Is that private? Is that public? Right? The three of us, I don't want to put words in all of our mouths, but enjoy working at a private institution and really enjoy working at a private school. I think we're all three of us are very big advocates for private higher education. So that's why we do just really want to highlight that private higher education. And private college graduates do finish on time. So 59% of graduates that go to smaller private schools finish within 4 years, where 38% of graduates from public institutions finish within 4 years. So it's just something to think about, definitely in terms of that private versus public. I really think that is the first big decision we kind of need to figure out, right? Figuring out what the environment we want on campus. And typically that means, do I want a public school? Do I want a private school? Do I want big? Do I want small? Those are things we need to kind of think about. But please don't ever, I think Travis said it a million times, don't ever count out a private institution just because of their sticker price, because yes, it is an investment in your future, but they do tend to get pretty comparable to what a public institution is. I can say from personal experience, I'm an alum of Aquinas, and when all was said and done, I did all my number crunching. I was paying less out of pocket at Aquinas than I was at any public institution I was looking at, because Aquinas gave me more money. So definitely remember that. If there's one thing you can really take away, just kind of remember that private schools, at any institution, private, public, this is an investment for you. And at the end of the day, it's about finding what's going to be the right fit for you.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. This is a beautiful segue. So we have a couple students from Alma College that are going to be sharing their experience at a private school. The first one is Lene. She is from Michigan, so she's going to talk about her experience and what drew her to the private college. And then the second one is Molly, and she's an out-of-state student from Indiana, and so talking about why she chose to come out of state and go to a private college in Michigan.
Hi everyone, my name is Lene and I am a junior at Alma College located in Michigan. I am majoring in psychology and minoring in biology and involved in the Alma Symphony Orchestra. I am originally from Muskegon, Michigan, but I chose to go to Alma College because of the family aspect of Alma. Everyone treats each other like family here ever since my first time on campus in 2018. Everyone has been so nice and welcoming to me. My favorite part of being an Alma Scot is that I've had the opportunity to get to know my professors with small classes, and this is very crucial when in college. It's so beneficial to know that I'm able to meet one-on-one with my professors. Creating that friendship with my professors just makes class more engaging and fun. So yeah, that's just a little inside scoop of my Alma experience. My very best wishes are with all of you in your decision-making process.
Hi guys, my name is Molly. I'm a senior here at Alma. I'm double majoring in history and political science. I'm also involved with Greek life here on campus, and I'm a member of our award-winning Model United Nations team. I'm originally from New Carlisle, Indiana, but I consider myself a part-time Michigander. When I was looking for schools, I was convinced I wanted to go to a big school out of state, but I was amazed when I toured Alma at how many opportunities a small school had for me. All the resources for students were extremely accessible, and all the professors seemed genuinely invested in my success. My favorite part of being a Scot, though, is all the opportunities Alma offers me off campus, whether it's working at a refugee camp in Kenya, interning at a nonprofit in Washington, or competing with our Model United Nations team in New York. Alma has truly let me do it all. We wish you the best of luck in your search process, and we hope that you find out what Alma can do for you.
All right, so sorry, we had a little plug and a little dog bark in there, so I apologize. We kind of touched on, the differences between public and private, and, I would consider ourselves versed in the art of, teaching you about the private institution, it's important to note that this is ultimately your decision. And so there are different aspects between public and private institutions. And so you need to find what is the best fit for you personally. This is, as I'm going to reiterate what Travis and Lindsay both said, this is an investment in your future. And so it's something where you need to be confident and in whatever decision you make, and make sure that where you end up is going to be your home for the next 4 years. So now we'll kind of go ahead and open it up for question and answer. If you have any, go ahead and put them into the box, and then we'll go ahead and answer them, or we'll just kind of give you some more advice.
Not sure if any is coming in so far, but yeah, I think, yeah, it can't be reiterated enough. I think that this is such a big decision, and we realize that. And I've been telling a lot of my students lately that because of the time we're in, it's all a little crazy. So don't ever be afraid to ask for help, or say what you need, or say what you want. If you don't know something, or if you're struggling with something and don't talk about it, or talk to your admissions counselor or another counselor or anything like that, then we won't know if you need help. There's only so many times I think all three of us can text you, "You doing okay? Do you need anything? You have any questions?" Before you need to let us know. If you think of anything, we're definitely here for you. I've also been telling a lot of students that I think college in general, and specifically Aquinas too, right? Because I work at Aquinas, but I think college in general, and maybe private institutions as a whole, our faculty and staff very much care about you because we're smaller, right? All three of us, because we're smaller, you get to know your faculty, you get to know your staff. And I think what's really cool about college is that you learn how to advocate for yourself. Regardless of where you go, I think college definitely helps you learn how to do that. I think that's very much a learned trait. So you are going to be pushed. Your hand's not going to be held. You are going to be able to really go out and get what you want. But having those resources at specifically private institutions is really great, because you can lean on those people so much. So I think that's my kind of advice. Like Erica said, we'll give some advice, is to definitely lean on faculty, staff, admissions counselors, whoever that might be, to either make this decision, or even when you get to college, lean on the support that your college is going to have, and ask those kinds of questions too. I think that's really important when you're on those tours, when you're on those visits. Ask what kind of support you can get. How are that faculty and staff going to support you in your college journey? That is, I think, going to be huge, and I think really help you out in this process.
Yeah, I still don't see any questions coming in or anything, but I think, I would just reiterate what we've all said a few times, is just make sure that you're, at this point in your process, that you're utilizing the resources that you have now, and people like Lindsay and Aaron and I, there's people like us on every campus, public or private, that are available to kind of be your go-to person on campus. We may not know every single answer to every single question that you have. We definitely don't know all of those answers, but we generally know a lot of answers to questions that we get a lot. But we also know the people on our campuses who do know the specific answers to all of the questions that you might have. So we can connect you with those people as well. So just kind of knowing who your go-to person on a campus is, I think, is really important. A lot of times when a student will come visit us on campus and we have a quick meeting, I have a quick meeting with them to go over questions, I really tell them at the beginning, like, hey, we can talk about questions, but really the main point of this meeting is just so you know that I'm a real person that you can talk to after today. So you kind of have my phone number, you can reach out to me, and I would just encourage you, if you're looking at some different schools, to kind of figure out who that person is at each school that you're looking at, so that you can ask questions and that person knows you and can reach out to you if they have anything that they think is important. And then just kind of going towards, making decisions. I know this year is a little bit different with not being able to visit every campus that you might want to, at least the same way. But I do think that most, if not all campuses are doing some sort of something. So they're having you visit on campus, some of them, a lot of them these days, might be more individual visits. I know, I think all three of us, or at least a few of us, have visits at least individually on campus right now. But then a lot of campuses have virtual visits, so they can at least kind of walk you around with, a camera and kind of show you around. Just, I know it's a little bit different and not ideal, but the whole pandemic is not really an ideal situation for anybody. So we're making it work, and you're still going to need to figure out a college to go to. So if you can, you just adapt along with us, then we'll figure out a way to make it work. And then the last thing I'll say is, just like we've said, this is your decision to make, your investment to make. You ultimately have to make the decision for yourself, not for me or Lindsay or Aaron, not for your parents, not for anybody, but for you. So make sure that you're visiting schools and seeing what's out there, and then deciding for yourself what is the best school to go to. You're not gonna hurt our feelings if you don't come to our schools, but you're gonna maybe hurt yourself if you don't go to a school that's not the best school to go to. So don't take our pushiness or our pressure as you have to make that decision. Make sure that you're making it for yourself.
And I'll kind of bring it around. And I always like to say, I always like to make the comparison that finding your college is like finding the love of your life, whoever they may be. And so, it may not be, love at first sight. You may need to take a number of times, either to campus or doing virtual visits or connecting with faculty members or coaches. It's a really awesome time for you, especially if you're interested in athletics. This is the first time you can kind of choose, in a way, your coaches and their coaching style. So, go out. It may take a couple of visits. It may take a couple of interactions. But at the end of it, when you know. And so trust your gut, and, really work with your admissions reps and financial aid and a bunch of other people who will be resources for you on that campus to really make this the love of your life.
I think we're all set.
Thank you all again for being here this evening. We really appreciate you taking part in this experience. Just as you're wrapping up today, just a few reminders. Number one, as you close this window, there will be a quick survey, a 4-question survey, super easy to fill out, but it's really useful for all of us as we're thinking about these panels and presentations in the future. I would also encourage you to explore more sessions like these. You can sign up for those on IACAC.org, and you can check out recordings of this session and other sessions online as well. But thank you all so much again, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care.